Hello everyone, a pleasant day. In this video, we will tackle concept paper. This will be the last topic to be included in the pre-second quarter examination together with the critic paper. I hope you will watch this and gain some sort of understanding regarding the topic. Our word of the day is moniker. A moniker actually simply means a name. For example, the Pearl of the Orient Seas is the historical moniker given to the Philippines. To kick off this lesson, I'd like you to ponder on this question. During campaign period, what do you mostly hear from the candidates? Another question for you to reflect is this. What are the platforms of the then candidates to solve the following issues? Because we all know that most of the time, during campaign period, candidates would often tackle different projects and social issues that they would like to address. So to name a few, we have the following. We have the lack of health facilities. This one is also very timely, especially that we are in the middle of a pandemic. Another problem is garbage. Improper waste disposal tends to affect a lot of people, especially when there is flooding that occurs in a certain area. Another problem is the lack of classrooms wherein schools, especially public schools, are prompted to make makeshift classrooms. So this one is the common scenario when we were still having our face-to-face classes. So the lack of classrooms, how will this be addressed? And of course, the issue on poverty. So usually this is the issue that candidates would always want to address, according to them, when they present their platforms. And last example, we have the issue on human rights violation. So we also have a lot of cases regarding this one. And all of these concepts, these topics, these issues could be your subject matter to be discussed or explored when you are going to make your concept paper. So now, what is a concept paper? A concept paper actually aims to clarify a concept which can be about any topic from any fields. So those problems earlier, they could actually be a topic for your concept paper. And aside from this, the goal of a concept paper is to capture the thoughts and ideas, while the research proposal captures the ideas in a structured manner for approval to research. So it is not really easy to write a concept paper, but with careful study and research, you could create one. And actually, it's just like an essay to define or explain concepts. It could be from simple ideas, such as what is a selfie, to academic and professional purposes, such as lucid dreaming and even politics. So that is your concept paper. Since we said earlier that the concept paper aims to explain ideas, we have different ways of explaining a concept paper. So it could be by definition, explication, or clarification. So several methods could be used in explaining a concept. However, you may also combine these three to provide a profound presentation of the subject matter. So the first one, definition. What is a definition? Usually when you are asked to define a concept or perhaps a term, you give its origin, its type, and by definition, it identifies a term and sets it apart from all other terms that may be related to it. Often, definitions begin by mentioning the general class to which a term belongs. Then they provide specifics to distinguish the term from other members of that class. For example, you want to define selfie. Okay, so perhaps you would like to first give its type that it is a type of or a way of capturing a photo. So you take a selfie. That is how you make a definition. For the second one, we have your explication. Explication is the process by which concepts are defined for scientific purposes. Okay, so this one is more on scientific purposes. And why is that? When you say to explicate, it means that in the most general sense of the term, you spell out its implications. When you say implications, what are the consequences, the effects? Thus, it is the process of spelling out the implications of something, and derived from this, in turn, is the sense of explication that refers to the product of this process. So some account of what the implications of something are. Explication, in other words, is still a kind of explanation. And the last one, we have your clarification. So this one is just like an analysis of an abstract concept through investigation of examples and the identification of critical and less critical attributes. Example, we have, or you would like to define the term salvage. You would like to write a concept paper on this one. You would like to use the clarification pattern because most of the time people mistake or mistook salvage as having a negative connotation. So you make a concept paper for clarification. So again, these are the three ways of explaining a concept paper. Definition, you try to give or define the term using its general class. Explication, you give implications. It is more for scientific processes. Clarification, if you aim to provide less confusion on a certain concept. To continue, another extended definition of a concept paper is the one made for a project. So what is this concept paper for a project? This summary document refers to the background of a project, its reasons for conducting it, and how it will be carried out. So it's just like a project proposal, okay? Concept paper. And since a concept paper for a project is not yet a full proposal, take note, it is not yet a full proposal, it will help determine the feasibility of a project. So we have the following uses of a concept paper. First is, it serves as a foundation of a full proposal. Second, it helps determine project feasibility. Third, it piques the interest of potential funding agency. And lastly, it obtains informal feedback on the ideas prior to preparation. These are the four important uses of a concept paper. I'd like to stress it again that the concept paper for a project is not yet a full proposal. However, it will help determine if the project is feasible. When you say feasible, if it is possible or is it doable. And having agencies read through your concept paper will help them also provide feedback on how you conduct your proposed project or what are the things that you still need to improve. When you say piques the interest, it means it captures your interest. This is the significance of a concept paper. Well, of course, the project concept paper will not be complete if not for the following parts. The first one is the cover page, followed by the introduction, the rationale or background, project description, and then the project needs and costs. Let's go over first the cover page. What should be in your cover page? So these are the following things to include. We have the name of the proponents and the affiliation, address, contact numbers, and email address of proponents, the head of the agency, and contact information. So when I say head of the agency, it could be the funding agency that you would like to partner with. In the next slide, I will show you an example of the concept paper. However, I was the one who provided the format for the cover page as a requirement for my students 2 years ago. Okay, so this is actually their concept paper for a project. Take note also that the cover page sometimes depends on the funding agency if they will provide a format for that one. For example, this is a concept paper made by my ABM students 2 years ago. So we have here the title, Biodegradable Water Bottle from Sugarcane. So for the cover page, I gave them the format. We have here the title. I asked them to write this here so that it could have the sort of research proposal feels, although it is not really a research proposal, then presented to, for example, my name, the proponent's name here. I remove their name for privacy. Then, for example, the name of the school, Colegio San Agustin Bacolod, and the date. Let's say you want to have this submitted to a funding agency. So you just change a few things. For example, the title here, you could have here in the middle presented to the name of the head of that agency for the proponents, your names, if you are an organization or a group, with your contact details or email addresses, and you could have here the organization you are affiliated to. Then you have the date of submission. So we provide here a date of submission. Having the date of submission is important, assuming that the funding agency people are busy. Having the date on it will allow them to prioritize the documents that they receive. For the introduction part, we have the following things to include. The first is the information about the funding agency, your mission as a proponent, or if you belong to a certain group, organization, or institution, you include your mission and you try to align it with your funding agency's mission. You can also present other partner agencies and the reasons why should they support your project. This is the sample of their introduction. So let's examine this. The funding agency chosen are VMC, that is Victoria's Milling Company. So as you can see, I asked them to really provide the real agencies in their concept paper. Aside from VMC, we also have DENR. And the one box in blue, the third paragraph, it talks about the mission and the description of the funding agency. Okay, so for example, VMC's mission included being responsible stewards of the environment. So meaning it is aligned also with your goal as the proponents. And the last paragraph presents the reason why the chosen partner agencies should consider your project. Why should they support it? So basically, this comprises your introduction. Moving on to the rationale or background, you need to include here the gap in knowledge to be addressed by the project and the problems to be solved and the project significance. Okay, I'll show you an example. So this is their background. As you can see in the first paragraph, they tried to first explain what is a water bottle. Okay, so it is a container, and then they also included the gaps. So when you say gaps in knowledge, these are the things that should be considered or should be further explored. So we presented here the problem. For example, in 2015, Philippines has been listed as the third highest producer of plastic waste thrown into the ocean after China and Indonesia. Know also that they included here citations or references while providing also statistics. So having statistics and figures will make your paper credible. Actually, there is more to this part. However, I tried to cut it here because their background is kind of lengthy actually. But basically, this is the components of a background. As For the project description, in this part, you include the goals and objectives, methodology, your timeline. Take note, it is in month and year. We also have benefits or anticipated outcomes and how success of the outcomes will be evaluated. See this example here. This is their project description. We have here the goals and objectives. They included their main objective, which is to create biodegradable water bottle, as well as their goals. Then, in this part, you have the methodology. I asked them to use a chart to have the readers follow it easily so that it could be presented very well. Since they are talking about a procedure, so they use the flow chart. Then we have the timeline. So the table below displays the time intended for the project to be finished. So they used a table. You may also use a Gantt chart. Gantt chart also is like a timeline. You have the date and what are the specific activities that they intend to accomplish for that specific week or date. For example, October 8 to October 14, brainstorming, and then they intend to purchase materials needed for December 10, December 17, 2018. Then the benefits and anticipated outcomes, they enumerated it here. They also included how they will evaluate the product success. They also included the different criteria to see if the product, which is the water bottle, is really good. For example, durability in terms of the composition, the shelf life, and the convenience. So this is your project description part. And the last part, but also one of the most important part, is your project needs and costs, main budget, item description and amount, justification of how the budget will be used, and what personnel or equipment do you need for your project. For the final part is the project needs and costs, where the main budget is outlined and the personnel or equipment also included. For example, they plan to consult a registered chemical engineer. How will they use the budget and the materials with a specific description? For example, cheesecloth. This is to filter the bagasse into a pulp. The number of items needed or the quantity, as well as the specific amount that or estimated cost for each item. Then they have here the total amount. So we have here the main budget. So they further broke it down into this table to make it presentable. And that is the last part of your concept paper for a project. And the last page, actually, I just asked them to include the references they use for the paper, especially in their background. Other things that we should also remember in making a concept paper for a project are the guidelines. So first, you need to make sure that the cost and methodology should be reasonable. Okay? Why is that? If your funding agency deems your costs and procedures not reasonable, they might scrap the project. For example, you want to conduct a literacy program for 6 Saturdays to 20 children. Then you are asking them to fund around 50,000 pesos. If you will not be able to justify it, they might not consider helping you out. Okay? That's why it must be reasonable. The second thing to remember is that the budget, methodology, and timeline should be clearly aligned. Timeline is crucial. Make sure that your project will be finished on the intended time. Sometimes the funding agency provides also a deadline for you to meet because they also perhaps want to include this project as part of their organization or agency. The third one, use statistics and figures when discussing the rationale for the project. So I mentioned this earlier, And if you have noticed the example, the students use statistics because this one makes you credible. Okay, so meaning you have basis in addressing the problem or in presenting the ideas that you want to include in your paper. Then we have the ideal number of pages. Use no more than 5 pages excluding the cover page. Too much pages might not interest your funding agency. However, it also depends on the agency if they will provide the format, but this one is the ideal one. Among others, this number 5 thing to remember is to never request funding for planning the proposal. For example, you included in your needs and costs a refund for your letter printing, snacks for planning. That is inappropriate, so please do not do that. Next, of course, you need to remember to adjust the language to the extended readers. Though you want to impress your readers or your funding agency, make sure that your language is adjusted so that others might understand. So avoid highfalutin language or jargons without properly defining them. Next is include the overview of the budget, include the main outline in your project needs and costs. Then this one, we have to include basic format details such as page numbers. Page numbers are really very helpful. So make sure that your paper is presentable and free from grammatical errors and observe margins also and readable fonts. And lastly, you need to cite your references. So those are the important things or guidelines in writing your concept paper. To wrap up our lesson for today, we have the following parts of the concept paper: the cover page, introduction, rationale or background, project description, project needs and costs. And again, a concept paper, it is an essay that aims primarily to explain a concept, and we have several methods. It could be by definition, implication, or even clarification. So it could be by explaining a very simple thing to a very serious one. And another extended definition of a concept paper is the one that is made for a project. So I hope you were able to somehow get a grasp of what is a concept paper. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you learned something about concept paper. This will be the last topic I will cover to be included in your pre-second quarter exam on the 19th. Don't worry, I will not ask you anymore to make a concept paper because this one really takes time and we still have other performance tasks to be expected for this second quarter. Anyway, if you have questions, then I already posted my email as well as my other contact details. Have a nice day, everybody, and God bless us.